Okay, so here we are. We're now live. Sorry about that. I had the wrong stream showing. So lots of stuff going on here. And I'm learning. So here's what's going on. We're going to talk about meters today. Studio One has too many meters. Lots and lots of good options. Be sure to throw a comment in the Facebook chat. Be sure to throw a comment in the YouTube chat. There's just too much going on. All right. So somebody's talking about the music reminds me of something. I don't know what you own from Rent. Oh yeah, I don't know. It was a good. My streaming service had it, so I used it, stole it. Well, I paid for a subscription and have for the last probably 5 years into that subscription there. So all right, thank you, John. Nice to know it sounded good. So there's the Facebook, and if anybody's on YouTube, which is always helpful if you're there, and leave a comment there as well, then that's super helpful too. So talking about meters. You have too many options, too many good options, and I'm going to go over all of them. Then at the very end, I'm going to tell you which one I use and why, because there are too many options. So the question is, which one do you want to use, and what's the best way to do that? Let me get my outline back up here. So first thing, you already know this. On the side of the track here, whenever you arm the track, this meter is going to start working. So every track that is armed, that is your input meter. If the track is unarmed, you don't see a meter. It doesn't make any sense because you only need it on the tracks that you're going to record on potentially. And of course, when that's not on, when you do play something back, then the meters are working as well.
First grader.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure, let me see. I'm going to turn this, I need to mute. So I'll unmute that. So now
it obtains a difference or deviation.
So you see the meter over here working when in playback, and it's in blue. And then when you arm it, you're going to see that meter is in, this coming off my microphone here, and it's obviously in green. So you have those two styles of meters, one recording, one playback. Every track that you arm will get a meter based on what the input is, and you can use that. And that's always there, and it's subtle, but it's appropriate, and it's a good option there. But people want more meters sometimes, and then we'll talk about pros and cons of all the different meters here, but in a minute. But let me show you all the different ones you have. First, you have the meter that's on the track here. Second, you can go into the mix console. If you set up your mix console correctly, by the way, the mix button in the lower right-hand corner, then you have, be sure input is showing. You see the meters, you see the values there. By the way, you can make these taller. There's other configurations. If I switch this over to this view here, I can get it to where I see just primarily meters all day long. And then each track has its own meter as well, in case you wanted those there. A lot of stuff going on there. And if you watch some of my older videos, I had this open at the bottom. By the way, you can break it out if it's not broke out. It's just sitting here at the bottom, but it's noise. So I don't usually use those, but you can detach them and put your mix console up wherever you want on another screen, this screen. I used to have it at the bottom. I used to always have these things showing here. And of course, you can adjust the height and the way it looks and that kind of thing. So you can get lots of meters, all right? There's even more options here. I'm not going over all of them because there's too many of them, okay? And I can make them skinny. See, look at how skinny those are. So now I have skinny meters, and I could see that, and I could set that off to the edge if I chose to with my input. And I don't want skinny meters. I want fat meters, big meters. Actually, I don't use those, not while I'm recording. But you can have them there. So that's meter number 2. Meter number 3 is when some people do this. They like the meter that's on the limiter. So they open up their limiter. You can have your limiter there, so that works really well. And with the limiter, one of the things that people don't know, for every effect that we have in our mix console, we can also do something called pin it. What does that mean? When we click on this, now if it's unpinned, I can go between all my different tools here and see some different things that are going on, and that works really well. So I'll go over here to my limiter, and now when audio is playing back, then I'm going to play this audio back. Let's see, if I mute it, well, it does, yeah. Huh. I didn't know that. Or I didn't remember that. If you mute it, now this track is playing, but instead of me trying to talk over that, which is really dumb, you get a chance to see that this meter is working right here. And some people like this meter, and you could pin it. And then when you pin it, then even if you close the mix console, that stays open. You can even when that's pinned, if I have my mix console open, I now could go over here to the Pro EQ and have that meter set up and have this thing working at the same time, so I could have this one. But notice, rather than switching between all the different tools, normally if I switch from this tool to this tool, you see it switches and takes over the window. The pinned one can stay where it is, and you can go back to your mix console and open something else, and you could have this one playing. Right now, they're both playing on that track. While I have it muted, the meters are working and metering, and so a lot of the different tools have their own meters. This one obviously gives you all the frequencies that are going on, or not all, but set up like a keyboard, and that's a good look if you wanted to if you were troubleshooting, working on something. That works really well. All these things are great when you're recording music and you're mixing 20 tracks and all. Most of them are not needed for doing voiceover, but nonetheless, they're there if you want them. So some people do use the meter and the limiter. I don't recommend that necessarily, but you can, because one of the things that people don't realize is I'm going to go over in here and I'm going to choose my plus sign. Now you can get this from multiple places. When I'm in the mix console itself, every track has its own little plus sign, plus for adding. So we go in here, and I happen to know, and you will know, it's called level meter. And if you pull this up, then you get the same. Well, watch this. That's not the default look. I need to get it back to default, because sometimes I mess with this. I think it's, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember. Depending on how your window is, now this is actually, watch this when I'm playing this back. It's the same meter as the meter that's up here. It's identical, okay? There may be something that I don't know. And then there's multiple displays that you can use to do this, and you can see these are the peaks. This is my, it's the peak hold. It's tracking the number where all my peaks hit on this particular track, and you could have that. And oh, while I'm putting them, I put that at the track level. Since this came about with somebody who is recording, then I'm going to take this one out here. So let me stop that. I'll get rid of this one here. That's on the output. I'm going to remove that. You can go over here on the input channel and choose the plus here and go level meter and pull that in. And now this is my mic. This is, you can see it's tracking what's happening with my mic here. But the interesting thing about this meter is it has quite a few options in terms of its display. I can have the peak showing. I can have it not doing that. But you also can take it and you can pin it. And I'm going to close the limiter one now, because you see there, if you like the limiter, just pull up the level meter. It's just less stuff going on. But what you can do with this is, of course, you can change its orientation. And if you really wanted a big, tall meter, people that come from audition very often believe that they want a meter. Now, we'll discuss that in a minute. But now I could take this and I can put it all the way to the left. I can put it all the way to the right. I can go ahead and have it in a strip across the bottom. But you see it's tracking my mic on the input, because that's where I put it. And if it's pinned, you can put it wherever you want. You can put it on another monitor if you have another monitor. You can put it all the way to the right. Let me put it down here so you see that in my display. We have that right here. So I could put it wherever. All right. You don't need this, but you can have it. So this is your input. You can put it all the way left. You can close this, because if you pin it, yep, this stays here too. And you can put it wherever you want. All right. So that's pretty cool that you have the ability. You see your numbers there. There's some other things you can experiment with on it, and you'll see that clicking this little button here gives you another option. There are more options for the meter. All right. You just have a lot of options. Too many options. You don't need to have your limiter open to get the meter. That works great there. Then, if you don't like this one, go ahead and go to the Presonus shop. And let me see, I'll get that from the browse panel here. And in the free section, you can get this directly in mypresonus.com. Or you can open it up in Studio One, open up the browse panel, go to shop. And in the free section here, you can get plugins. And one of them is the VU meter. Now and then down at the bottom, it allows you to install it. I already have it installed on mine, but it's called VU meter. It's free. And if you do that, then I'm going to close this again. But just like I have this one pinned here, I now can go in to my mix console. There's another way to do it. I could go browse. I could go effects. There's always more than one way to do this thing. And there's a VU meter sitting right here. So I could take that and apply it to the track if I wanted to see it on the track. But I really want it in the input, because I want to see what my levels are when I record in this example. And I'll talk more about that in a second. So I'm opening up my mix console, and I installed it. You would need to install it on yours. Let me get the mix console here. Choose our little plus sign here, and let's go to the very bottom, and we get the VU meter. Okay, so here's the deal with the VU meter. And Nick, I'll talk about how to set the VU meters. Yeah, you see how many dB that's sitting right here. That's right there. So here's the VU meter. If you do this, and you could pin this one as well. So I put those now. There are different. One of the things that people don't know, in the old days when I worked in a recording studio, this is the only meter we had. We had a VU meter. We had none of this visual stuff that's going on here, but I can have it here. But depending on what I do for the scale, then it will determine how. So one of the things, if you look at real VU meters, I should have gotten a picture of one. They almost always have a little circle right here with a screwdriver. There's a knob in there you would calibrate it with a screwdriver, and you could calibrate these things. Well, what does that mean? They were all different in every studio you went into, every mixing console. There was not one standard for how these VU meters work. And there's something called ballistics, and it just means while the meter itself weighed almost nothing, a little needle, it weighs something. And as the electrical signal was going through to do it, it ended up being more or less, and so you could adjust its sensitivity, and that would allow the meter to work. And after a while, you got pretty good at reading them, because you knew if it went about to a certain level that the needle doesn't always keep up with the sound, but it was something that you could learn to use. It wasn't perfect. It's kind of like you have a mirror in your car, and it says things can be closer than they appear in the mirror. The mirror is not always a perfect representation. The mirror in your car doesn't show you everything all the way around. It has blind spots. It is not perfect, but it's nice to have. And you learn to use the mirror and how to check for the blind spots, and then cool, it works. It's kind of like the VU meters. I don't think you need them there, but you can have them. But there's a real good one. You can mess with the scales. There's a whole bunch of different options. I can go to fast. There's a bunch of presets in this one. There's one, I don't know what silent channel is. I don't know what solo channel is. And then, see, this one barely moves. Just notice, I'm talking here, this meter's moving. The digital meters are virtually instant. This meter here is because of, and what they're doing is, there were a whole bunch of them back in the day, and therefore there's kind of some that you would end up using and that were more popular. And then what they've done is they've modeled all the more popular ones so that if you use that back in the day and that's what you're used to, then cool, you can have that running. Now, that's, let me check my, oh yeah, that's all. So that gives us 5 choices. We have the one that's here on the left. We have the one that's the level meter. We have the VU meter. We have the one that's going to show up, let me get rid of this, in the mix console where you have a couple meters here, and they're all calibrated here. So you have a lot of choices. 4 that I count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, not including if you wanted to use something like the Pro EQ has a meter on it, and you could put that in, you could track the frequencies that are going through track it really granular rather than just aggregate here. Now, here's the thing for voiceover. You don't need any of these things. I used to have this open. You know what's happening now? I get distracted. I'm trying to talk to you, and I see in the corner of my eye all this noise going on, and nobody needs it for recording voiceover. It's actually the wrong place for our focus to go, because one, they don't track in real time to be perfect. You don't need them. All you need to do is look at your track here, and if you experiment with it a little bit, you'll be able to see, hey, look at this track. It's about here. I call it mama bear level. And for me, a perfect mama bear is going to look about like that. What is that? 2/3 of the track at the highest point, roughly, something like that. That's all you need to do, because everything else in Studio One you can deal with post, meaning afterward. And don't let people tell you should record really quiet at -12 or -18 BS. You can go as long as you don't clip. And I even have a safety limiter, so I can never clip. Studio One gives us the ability to do that sort of thing. But even so, as long as you stay below 0, you're fine. I like to stay below -3 or so, but I have my safety limiter set at -1. That's all you need to care about. Don't clip. And there's even a dirty secret about that I'm not going to go over right now. But the point is that as long as you're not clipping, you're good in voiceover. And you do not, when we recorded music in the day, we did record very small. We kept it between 12 and 18, but it's just tooey. You do not need to do that in voiceover if you're recording voice tracks. And yeah, I come from a music background. We used to do that. Why? I'm going to mix 12 tracks, 15 tracks, 25 tracks. And if they all come in at the level that we might use them later, what do we have to do to begin with? We'd go turn them all down. So engineers got in the habit of just turning everything down to begin with. And you do not need to do that if you're recording a voiceover. So you don't need, this is plenty of meter. You do not need to know the numbers. What you need to know is it about the right size? And just look at your track and do 2/3 of your track. If your track is smaller, 2/3 of it. If your track is larger, 2/3 to 3/4 of it is fine. And then we have tools at the very end afterward that are sitting on the track where we can add some gain, take some gain away if we needed to. We were always adding in voiceover. So we're always going to have more because we cannot record loud enough to meet the specs for ACX. We cannot record loud enough to be competitive in the voiceover world. We're always going to be recording at a reasonable level where we get no clipping, no distortion, and then afterward, we're going to add some gain. We're going to apply some other tools to make it to do all the right things. But you're recording, you do not need to be tracking. And if you are watching this meter while you're recording, I submit your focus is in the wrong place because your focus should be on your script and in your head thinking about how are you emoting? How much emotion can you get? And that is a lot more important than anything else you can do. This metering stuff is a waste of your mental energy. Don't do it. That would be my recommendation of that. Now, hey, by the way, some people don't listen to me. I have 5 children. They listened to me when they were young most of the time, or they stealth didn't. It's kind of funny as they're all adults, they'll go, yeah, well, you used to say we couldn't do X or Y, and here's how we worked around that. And I see all sorts of people. Hey, people are successful doing all sorts of things, but I submit, if you're watching a meter and trying to figure out how many dB you're doing while you're recording, you're totally missing it. I do use meters to get things adjusted to begin with. If you're using this every day or multiple times, you know what this should look like, what the norm is, and you give a sense of it. But you don't need to know a number there in order to know whether you're recording well or not. If you really want to, yes, you can go in the mix console. Yes, you can open this level meter. Yes, you can make it up and down or side to side as you see fit, however you like it. But you don't need to do this. It's a waste of your mental energy, and it's a wrong place. Nobody's hiring you or me because I hit the levels to begin with. One, we're not even going to use those levels at the very end. This has nothing to do with our final when we're recording voiceover. So don't let anybody tell you, oh, you should be hitting, and you don't need to do -12. You don't need to do, it's quiet. Mama Bear works, okay, right in the middle. 2/3 of your screen, that's fine. You can. It's not that hyper precise because I'm going to add gain. I'm going to have some other tools working on it anyway. You can't get around that in voiceover. So no reason. So let me go look at the comments here and see if anybody made a comment that we could respond to. And Nick, but I want my numbers. Yes, you can. Yes, you can have those. Coming from Audition, I want to see my levels. But here's the thing, Nick. You can see levels here and you can see levels here. And if you really want to see the input levels, you can see them here. You can put it on the output, but you don't need it. It's a total waste of your energy to be looking at those meters while you're recording. But if you want the numbers, here's the numbers. The numbers are in the mix console. There's the numbers. You can go ahead and even change your view in the mix console. Let's see, I don't do that. That's this way. And you can get these really tall meters that are giving you exactly your numbers. You can have that too if you really wanted to. It's a total waste though. It's not where our focus should be as a voiceover artist. But if you want them, they're there. Okay, so I don't use them. You don't need them. I did use them. That's the funny thing. I did that. I did that the first probably year or two because I thought it was important. Now I've been doing it 10, 12 years now, and it's like, no, it's a total waste of energy. And All my clients, I encourage them to not do that. You can look at this track. Any place on here I could see if I had clipped, there's a big one there. I have a safety limiter on it. Doesn't matter. If you have my tools, you already have a safety limiter on it. You should not be going above -1 or so. Just any place in the ballpark works fine. I've done this with thousands of people, so without a meter. And yes, the people that come from audition are used to having this thing bubbling all the time, but it takes your attention away from the most important thing. But if you want it, cool. Go ahead and set up the input meter and set it there, and you'll have your numbers. You can see them right there. If you change the display here, it'll hold the peak, what the latest peak is. But man, if you're watching that while you're recording, I'll just flat out say you're missing it. I do the first time I set some things up, cool, but not on a day-to-day basis, just a total waste. I don't want VU meters. I don't want the level meters. I don't want any meters. This is more than enough. And I did it the other way for a couple of years when I first started out, but that's 12 years ago. And then you learn some things, okay? So yes, when people come from other tools, they're used to having that, but it's not helpful, okay? All right, let's see if anybody else, let me do this. We'll see if there's any comments there. All right. And then, and if you start a new track and you're loud, again, basically though, Nick, if you set up if your templates are set right, it's all going to come in the same every time. If it's coming in different every time, either you have Zoom not set up properly because Zoom is changing your volume behind your back. It should come in the same every single time when you have this. That's the last thing that once you're set up, nobody should have to readjust it on every session. All right? They just don't need to. And then furthermore, if they ever need to make quick adjustments, Studio One has the ability up here with this one knob on your input to change the input gain, but you don't need that. And so, by the way, if I have a lower output interface, I can add some gain, take some gain away. It's usually add gain. I can add ultra clean gain right here with this little knob that's sitting here if I ever needed it on the input. But I'm not going to come in dramatically louder or quieter if I have my setup right and my meters. I just don't need them. Okay, I'll just tell you that from experience. But some people want them. If you want them, they're there in spades. You don't need them. This is plenty. And really, even this, I don't pay any attention to. I look at the track. Oh, something's changed in my configuration. It's too big. Yep. Scrap that. Start that again. You can see the results right there in your audio. And if it were, I'll make it nice and dark for you. So if I were seeing that I'm going over, then I might change it. But you know what? Don't need to do that. All right. I think I get comfortable and set my time so good. Yep. Yeah, Dad. Nick, beautiful. So I wish I had said it so nicely. You can trust the process once you get your setup right. It's the same with your room. You don't worry about how's my room treatment doing today. It didn't change from yesterday. Once I get it all dialed in, I don't need to keep micromanaging that. Where's my mic going to sit? Our goal is that our mic is always sitting at the same spot. Now, if somebody's moving their mic closer and further away and changing it every time, then yeah, then they're going to have to look and verify it. And if I had to change everything, I move my mic in a different spot, I'm constantly fiddling with my stuff, I'd go ahead and record 10 seconds and look at it. I don't necessarily look at the meters while I'm doing it. I record 10 seconds, 20 seconds as a test, and I look at that and I go, hey, is that tall enough? And if it's not, I'll go adjust something and then go ahead and record again. So you could record 10 seconds, and that's a lot better because you really want to be focused on your performance, not watching because then you're multitasking and you're looking at something. Quit it. Do whatever you want, all right? I don't mean to tell you what to do. I can tell you the best practice, and I can tell you the best narrators I know in this business and the best voiceover people I know in this business are paying no attention because once their setup is right, they do not need to micromanage that. So once again, don't let somebody tell you, oh, I need to be down here -12, -18. That's hooey. Just don't clip. If you go over the top there, that's the problem, okay? Anything short of that, we're good, and especially if you're consistent within yourself, and hey, life is pretty good. All right, Nick, cool. And it is something that people have to get used to if they're used to having a meter there all the time. That's what they have. That's what they grew up with, and that's distracting, okay? Don't drive and don't text while you drive. Can you do it? Sure. I mean, you can get away with it for a while, and one day you won't, all right? Can you? Of course you can. You're adults. Do what you want. But we all, yeah, we know what happens eventually. My attention's in the wrong spot while I'm driving, if I'm texting, if I'm doing things on my phone. So, yes, I have to be very careful. This ain't one of them. All right, let me check final thing for comments and refresh my comments here. All right. Nick's got it right. I love the summary of that. Basically, trust the process. And you get this stuff dialed in to where it's reasonable. And let's say I had one day, let's say I had one day where I had recorded that and it was too quiet. Big deal. I can go ahead and add on the output side, I can add some more to it if I needed to. People are telling you, oh, you have to do 24-bit. That's even hooey too. It doesn't do 16 bits fine, especially if you're doing audiobooks. Some people think bigger numbers are better. That part's frustrating. It's just because they don't know. It's good marketing. Good marketing. If you have big numbers, it's better. It doesn't make you sound better. And blind tests, plenty of blind tests out there, 48, we'll talk about all that another day. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you have a question or comment or something that you wonder about Studio One or about RX, be sure to send me a direct note. Throw them in the comments. Join the group if you're watching this on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, be sure to join the Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, go watch this on YouTube. That always helps me. Throw a comment in there. Give it a like. Subscribe to the channel. These are coming up all the time. Trying to do two per week on average. So if you have something you want to see, let me know. Hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon. Bye.